Okay, we are connecting. We are still connecting, and we are waiting for the system to give me the good to go. I have got the green light from my system now, so we are waiting for more people to join us in the room. But we have already a couple of people who are in there, so uh, let's get the coach chat rolling here. We have another coach chat today with Shenarda from Sport 101 Academy in the UK, and we're going to focus on building a practice today with a strong focus on aerials on the move. So, Shenarda, the floor is all yours. Let's take it away.
Thanks, Ernest. Hey, everyone. Please feel free to ask any questions on the chat, or Ernest will be able to bring you on. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Bear with me 2 seconds. Ernest, can you just confirm it's in full screen for SPS?
It's a full screen for XPS.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, guys, so we'll get started. I'm going to use the platform XPS to design the session for you today. So I'm just going to go in the calendar and make a new training session based on today. So this would be essentially where you could add all your scheduled practices in for the week or for the coaches working for you. So a label would be quite simple as senior. So you keep these labels quite generic. You could put in the topic or in notes aerials if you would like. The location, obviously, arrival time minutes before, and we're roughly going for a 90-minute total session, and your arrival details can be included as and when you would like. So here we've got the option now on the sidebar to use our playbook. So it's basically our source of all our drills. So you'll make all your drills and exercises in the playbook, and then when you're trying to design a session, you'll be able to pull and grab them as you go. For those that haven't been with us before on one of these chats, the side sections are labeled based on the hockey site's interpretation. These folders can be labeled any way you would like if you're using the platform. So I'm just going to go through. Basic skill would be any skill technical shaping in isolation, so no opponents. Game skills would be technical shaping in isolation, perhaps with pitch specific orientation or cues, or sort of fake information or a fake opponent. Game simulation would essentially be anything roughly 5v5 and above. So that's definitely bigger picture stuff. Game skills potentially would be sort of 3v3 up to 5v5. So smaller sided games, small unit play. Game situations would be larger spaces, 5v5. So I'm going to start with, however, my physical warm-up. So I'm going to go to my physical, going to go to my warm-up section. Now, I've actually specifically designed something based on speed. So I'm going to go down to my speed section, and I'm going to pick my physical warm-up. If I make my screen bigger, that might help. There we go. So here's my sprint warm-up based on some aerials. So essentially, I'll show you the picture in large. Hopefully you can see it. So essentially it uses the whole pitch. You can do this in 2 directions if you want, but I've used the whole pitch, imagining I have one goalkeeper within this block also. So you're going to need 6 tall traffic cones. So the resources essentially tell you exactly what you require. 12 flat strips, 30 tennis balls, 1 goalkeeper if available, not necessarily required, but if you have a goalkeeper, we need to make sure that they're incorporating some of their work. So this would be coordination stuff. They wouldn't require any kit because what we're using is really soft balls and tennis balls, so no hockey balls required. It'll be 10 minutes straight out. So they'll roughly do 6 sprints in total before they get a rest period. The purpose is obviously to incorporate team sprint training into a warm-up that essentially gives the players an idea of what the theme is for the session. So the focus is obviously more on the sprinting aspect in between the exercises, but what it does relating to the theme is creating that connection between two players where you're trying to find someone leading and you're trying to throw an overhead into space. It also allows the keeper to join in and work on sort of some goalkeeping aspects transferable from things like handball. So I've kind of used a warm-up influenced a little bit by NFL patterns. So that sort of concept. So the organisation essentially is one fullback. So is number one here on the screen. I'll show you down here. I'll just move. Oh, there we go. Essentially one fullback that passes to number two. Number two will throw an overhead with a tennis ball, so overarm potentially to start with. I'll talk about the variations later on, for player three leading in behind to create that sort of connection on an aerial. I also would really like them to go diagonal with the overhead. I think too many times we throw overheads in the same channel, and actually it's more effective to throw on a diagonal and across channels. So everything is across the channel, and then essentially again they sprint to their next cone and it repeats the goal. As I said, you can go both directions if you don't want to work your way up, but the consequence of that would be they would only get 3 sprints before a rest. So if I show you the video of what it looks like before we go into the variations. So again, really simple. Simple pattern of play. They sprint between the cones. They sprint with the ball. They pass, and again, and then the opportunity is to shoot at goal, throw, almost handball style, 1v1 in that sort of sense. And then basically it's a walk and recovery to the bottom, and then they go again for 10 minutes. So roughly in 10 minutes, they should roughly get about six sets in of 6 sprints per set. So good repetition of maximal speed. The variations. So we talked about the variations of change. You can obviously change the pattern of connection, a bit like NFL. You can change the pattern that they're running. You can add a trigger movement into the person throwing the aerial. So a trigger movement could be, we'll talk about a trigger movement on the inside pull later on that we have set up. So it could be just they go to one cone and back and then they throw, rather than being static, because obviously everything we're doing today is roughly about throwing aerials whilst in motion. Coaching points, obviously for the sprint, we're trying to keep the upper body still, the head still, the shoulders and the face relaxed. Torso quite vertical, arms close to the body at 90 degrees, working alternate socket to pocket. Really very simple. We're looking for the heel under the hamstring, which should give us a full sole strike on the floor, okay, rather than heel toe or toe heel. We're looking for a full flush foot strike on the floor. And then a dorsiflexion foot, which would mean that the toes come up, and that would also help with your heels under your foot. So once we've done our physical warm-up and then our sprint session, we're going to start to look at the next exercise. So I'm going to go to trying to think which one we want to do. We'll go to our main one today. So I'm going to start to look at the is this the right video? Nope, that's not. Apologies, that's not my one. Nope. Apologies, sorry. I can't remember where I've put my one. Aerial receiving overhead, that one. There we go. So I'm just going to give you a demonstration of the first one that we are looking for. And this is going to be for our inside pull. So I will, the video is not credited to me, so I have borrowed the video. Should come up. There we are.
Shenarda, we can't hear the video, so if you have comments over the video, then it needs to be you to. The sound of the video is off.
Oh, perfect. That's fine. I'll pop it on replay a second then. So as I said, the video is borrowed, but it was a really nice example of setting us up for our inside pull that we're going to start with as an option. So basically, we refer to the inside pull as moving the ball from outside of the pitch, predominantly looking at right-sided players. I mean, you can also do this on the left, but anyone in the right channel pulling the ball from the right sideline in and then out. He's obviously performing it on the left-hand side. The exercise that we'll do will be from a right to left throw, whereas this is a left to right, but still with the inside drag, essentially to make a new passing window. So that's the technique we're going to be looking at. And then if I now go to my game skills on the board, passing should be in here. Here we go. So there we go. Oh, that's my one. Sorry guys, it seems to be, it's duplicated mine on the board. Ah, why is it duplicating? Sorry guys, I'm just trying to find where I popped the second one. It should be in there. It's not on. Where did I put it?
Do you remember what you named it? Otherwise, you can
Yeah,
use
I
the
did.
search bar on search bar on top.
Yeah, I did inside pull, but it's
That is the one that we are seeing here. Huh?
Yeah, it's but it's that's not the one I. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's the right one. It's because I duplicated the video, so I'll get this one. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. And I'll skip the video. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. This is essentially the first one. So what I've tried to do is create, rather than necessarily a cohesive full session of 90 minutes, what I've tried to do is design exercises that you would use more in sort of a small group technical shaping workshop. So I probably wouldn't do this with a whole squad just because of the amount of inactivity. But if you had a group of, I don't know, 10 or 5 or 6 that you had that were coming to an extra session and you wanted to do a focus, you could run these drills on the same pitch orientation at times if you were creative, and then do a workshop where they move around 3 stations, 20 minutes. But I've set it up as 3 individual exercises. So essentially, again, we said we wanted to start in this right-hand channel, although they did it on the left. It's just a little bit easier for them to throw when they're learning from right to left than left to right with the inside pull, because the ball is already coming towards your body, so it's much easier for the body orientation. So essentially, player 1 carries to the right-hand cone in a ball carry shape that says that you're going to go on the outside of the left foot, potentially, not so close. And then we pull the ball inside, utilizing the backspace that we have available, because our body orientation will be a little bit more towards the sideline. And then we're going to throw to 2 players in the D, trying to make it pitch specific and situational. So then the 2 in the D would obviously shoot, so they could either let it bounce, shoot first time off the turf. They could receive, shoot first time on the receiver, the aerial. What I would do is also have a feeder somewhere where my cursor is, just in case the quality is not great. You could obviously feed a small aerial as a coach to the players, or be on this side potentially, so the aerial still comes right to left, where they can still practice. And again, it engages the goalkeepers that come to the technical shaping sessions, that mean that they don't have to be with a specific goalie coach. So if I go to the top again, just the requirements, sort of 4 cones, 1 goalkeeper, 3 players. Sort of roughly 20 minutes, you'd rotate all the players through the section, so it wouldn't just be one specific player throwing all the aerials for 20 minutes. And then it also gives them a variation again of how they might use it in a game. Organisation is quite simple. We said we're going to get player 1 to carry to the right-hand cone, do an inside pull, which we showed you on the video, making sure the ball rolls horizontally across the body. That also helps with the pickup technique when we come to the coaching point. So the roll and the revolutions of the ball will help the stick pick it up much easier. And then we are looking for the variations of the left hand to lead first. So you're almost going to catch the ball, have it off on the stick with the left hand leading, and then the right to follow. So if you're trying to get more distance and power, or you're working with any athletes that perhaps aren't able to get the distance you require, it normally means their right hand is leading first and the left doesn't allow you to pick the ball up and sort of create a sling effect. So there are ways to practice those, like getting kids to hold the ball on their stick, go left and right, so it's already balanced on the stick and they're sort of a little bit more vertical. You could also practice with them with the ball raised on a cone if you were to use it with younger players in the first stages, because their stick head it gets under the ball much easier. If you're doing it with adults, learning this new pitch orientation aspect and how they might use aerialing differently than just like a static build-up play and an overhead, as it's called, over large distances. And actually in live situations, we might use lighter balls just to help them with the execution, or heavier if you're trying to build a little bit more mass and power later on. But it depends on the athletes you're working with. And again, just down the bottom, it tells you how many minutes you can have. So you have 20 minutes, and then the intensity levels would be fairly low. So you'd put it at a 4. So this is all sort of in the technical shaping aspect. So it'd all be low intensity. And I will show you what it looks like just as a rough guide. Ooh. Where did you go? Oh, you're not playing. There we go. Just as an idea with the carry, again, using that backspace, trying to keep the ball still somewhere in our right foot space more. So from central to over, so we're never letting the ball roll across all the way over to the left foot. And I'll show you again, just once more. And again, using our backspace, pulling the ball. At that point, we would also be looking and then throwing for a shot to either of the connections higher up the pitch. I believe this replicates one of the Australian goals, but maybe not necessarily. Well, it's actually over a bigger distance. So now I'm going to go back to our next activity. So we would be again passing. Just check I didn't put anything. Aerial on the move. No. So the next one we are going to do is our backhand aerial. So again, just adding a different situation for the players to concept. This is probably the least movement with footwork, but it involves motion with the body a little bit more. And again, I just wanted to make everyone aware that overhead aerialing is one way of aerialing, and that we can use them in different ways, and why might we use a more advanced skill. So this one's a little bit more expansive. This would be a backhand aerial. So predominantly we're looking to use it as a left half back or a left right back trying to get out of trouble, or possibly a left midfield doing their defensive duty. So I've set it up with a pitch space again, so you can go both ways. So you could set the same exercise up going this way if you've got 2 goalkeepers, plenty of safe zone in between. Again, or you could use it as just one station, and then you could use one of the other exercises in this larger space. There's no problem utilizing those. So again, they're all sort of workshop 20-minute space, so you can pair them on the pitches and rotate players around if you've got 10, or you can duplicate them. So we obviously have the halfback, a fullback, predominantly in a back 3 situation. It's not in necessarily a build up, but you could add the second one in if you would like. 2 sort of pressing passive players that are going to use the trigger information to help with the decision making, and then a midfielder that is going to lead high for the visual aspect of it. So I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. So here's just an example. We've played the ball out. We're in a little bit of trouble. Players are going to press. We've also got some sticks obviously in there involved. You can see the sticks coming now. So we're playing over the top into those spaces. So away from the sticks, over the top. Definitely in a free passing channel for now. I would encourage it. But again, we could start to add an extra pressing player sort of where the hand writing is. Again, just to get the height. So I'll show you again. So this is these guys are just giving information. So not necessarily variable information. It's a preset cue, but it is a visual point for the eyes and behaviors. So you could say if they don't press that you could play the ball early to a lead on your forehand. That's absolutely fine to make it more realistic. So again, we said the purpose was to introduce and explore different applications of the aerial or overhead in a game based on pitch specific orientation and positional relevance. So again, this would be looking at more of your backline defensive midfielders options of using a different variant on an aerial. The organization would be, again, you could repeat it both directions if appropriate. You would need 5 players for this. 2 players are applying the pressure or the cues. The variations we spoke about was tennis balls, light balls, also to help with execution and making the outcome a bit easier, definitely getting the longer end. Then if you wanted to make it, I think I have one more. Yeah, I do. This variation, if you wanted it to make it more game-like, so more into the game skills sort of 3v3 aspect, we said that we could add goalies in both ends and a goal. We could add a marking player to mark the high lead. We could take the strips out, and again, we could ask these 2 to play some specific information, and we could play both directions. So once the ball turned over, we could play, and this also could incorporate for those that are pressing, perhaps a right-hand side baseline entry, because the pitch orientation obviously takes you away from help side. So it might be, how can we play down the baseline for circle entry? So organically, if the red team turns the ball over, because they don't have the right shoulder of the circle to exit in, they're going to play left. So it will start then also to create more organic opportunities and decision making for number 2 to decide whether they are going to go into ball protection or whether they're going to try and play forward facing or whether they can actually execute the backhand in a live, more game-like situation. So again, the pitch orientation and the pitch setup lends itself to create these environments more organically. I'd definitely start with the first one first. That's pre-prescribed information, still with a trigger, before adding the variability in, just for the safety. So the idea they get used to it. This is based on the fact that we've already done backhand aerial in isolation. So between players in the warm-up potentially. So the group would have already had a prior knowledge on this one. And on the inside pull aspect a little bit more. So again, the coaching points we looked for, ball position needs to be just inside the right foot ideally, because we're in ball protection. Less movement in regards to footwork, but definitely in weight transfer. So you want to drop the left shoulder a little bit to open up the space for the stick to come under the ball. Left hand across the body to make the stick vertical. What I mean by that is we're not scooping the ball with the stick handle sort of facing down the sideline. The stick handle still needs to be sort of, to me, coming towards, and then I'm going to push my left hand because we're going to use a smaller surface area of the stick than we would on the forehand, because we're sort of using more of the toe aspect, so it's a little bit limited on surface area. So we need to make sure the left hand comes across the body to get the power, and then the right, same principle to throw the ball. Again, would this be as long as a normal overhead, sort of 75 meters? Probably not, because of the limitations on movement of the hands and where the stick needs to be and the surface area of the stick and ball contact. It would, I mean, you'd do well to chuck 50 meters with it to relieve pressure or connect with a highline midfielder. Also limit the follow through, so we're not turning all the way around with the right hand. It's going straight down to the line. The left hand will also prevent younger kids or adults over rotating, and then obviously possibly catching the two players dangerously to make the clear sticks, keeping you in the corner. And again, time at the bottom and intensity. We could say this is a little bit more intense because it's got an added pressure and anxiety aspect to the exercise. Now, the last one is predominantly what you've come to hear about. So I'm going to talk a little bit more if I've got it on here. Is it this one? No. It's the one before. It'll be under here. There we go. So again, just going to basic skills, aerial and receiving, aerial on the move. So, in fact, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna add the next one in because the video is in the next one. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like so you get an idea of what we are trying to achieve. Down here, here we go. I'll scroll back up. So I'm just going to show you this video because again, I'm trying to incorporate all of the session designs based on what we see in a game. So watching the top level hockey and finding situations and skills that can be applied to a pitch. And again, so it shapes your technical shaping with information. So it helps players understanding of how they can apply the technical shaping that you're doing, as well as the pitch orientation, positional specifics. So here is, if it opens, a video clip of the main attraction. So this is definitely on the move. And this is in a live situation on a counter, actually. Is this working? Let's see if I can get it full screen.
No, we're seeing it in a small screen. You need to enlarge it.
I don't know why that's not doing that. Let me just pause it. Let me try again. See again. It doesn't appear to want to enlarge.
I'm guessing that video doesn't allow the enlarged part.
Possibly not. Can you see
show
that?
it like that. That will be good enough. Just press play there.
Sorry, guys. So it's GB that we are looking at. So it will be in the transition phase, turnover. And here's the ball carry, and then the short aerial on the move. So again, into a running line. So when I saw this video, I thought it was perfect for what we were trying to achieve today. So then I wanted to create a session that replicated this this picture essentially, or this 30-second video clip. And I was trying to think how could we encourage players to do this, because this is, yes, it's talent and it's sort of innate, but we can try and create environments that allow our athletes to do this. And predominantly, most of the time when I was a player, I learned an overhead in a static build-up situation rather than any of these situations. So I'll go back to the technical shaping about how I might introduce this straight off. So I'll set it up here. So again, the resources will tell you how many cones and strips you need. This is only a 15-minute aspect. The main bit that's important are the boxes. So these are to aid depth perception. So again, all the time we do technical shaping, I want to try and add an element of feel, decision making, or cues, so that they either read information or they understand the information they're giving away. So here is the depth perception around how it feels to execute a skill, how we understand where we're trying to throw the ball, how far, how deep, how high. And those are things that can be developed in kids at a young age. So essentially, again, you could do this with tennis balls, you could do this with light balls. It's all listed in the variation. You can, I'll show you one variation about how we might challenge the depth of and the perception of a more talented athlete, even if it's an adult or a child. So essentially they carry, and their key is to make sure that they perform the aerial on the move before they reach the gate. Okay, so they either perform it before the gate or in line with the gate, but never beyond the gate. So they're starting to understand about how their footwork happens in relation to their grip and their change of grip to be able to execute it. So they must perform the skill before or on the line of the gate. And what they're trying to do is to get the object they're using, whether it be a light hockey ball, a tennis ball, for really small kids, if you want to start them early, a balloon, a little bit harder, so the boxes would be much closer, would drop into the boxes. And then they would just repeat. So limited safety aspect, unless we're obviously using heavier ball, like hockey balls. If we're trying to train adults, we might use heavier balls just to get them to accelerate their right hand a little bit quicker. It's more resistance, so they have to put more effort in. So there are different ways that balls can aid techniques in different areas. So we would drop them into the box and they would see how many times they could land in the box. You could also score the game. The variation essentially could be for better players, the distance is longer or the box is smaller. We might even change it to closer so they have a shorter execution rate. So the ball has to go vertically much quicker and then over, so less distance. So again, we're trying to understand the difference in our ability to move our right hand and accelerate it up, how open the stick needs to be. And this sort of exercise is just a little fun way, again, with cues, technical shaping, but with a little bit something else to it. Now, the ball position that we talked about was just outside the right foot. So most of the time with this technique on the move, we'll be passing off the right foot. So again, different to our traditional overhead where we would normally chuck a little bit more with the weight transferring from right to left. So it would be a left foot step. We're actually going to throw in a much more frontal position rather than a side on position. And we're going to be in motion and traveling. So the ball needs to be outside the right foot to allow the right foot to place the floor. We're going to have an open stick face and we're sort of going to drop the shoulders and bring our stick sort of around the ball. So it'll be a little drop and then our stick will come around the ball to get under. And again, we're looking to accelerate the right hand. So we're looking again to try and get the left hand out if we can, but because it's a shorter distance, there's room for it just to be the right hand that accelerates a little bit quicker because we're not looking for so much length. So in the warm-up, if you wanted to replicate some of this movement, you would, instead of doing overarm throws on the NFL stuff, you may do underarm. So again, we're looking for the right hand to come up with the ball, and that might start to again create some synergy between the warm-up aspect technically as well as visually for your coaching points. Now this is a topic I was given and a topic I've not really done before in delivery or really thought about. So I really quite enjoyed planning it. So this is just one way, and I definitely will be exploring how I might deliver some of these before, but all the sessions are designed around the fact that I would like them to understand what information they're giving away when they're executing something, what information they're getting from the opposition, and then again, where might and why they use it in a game. So this would essentially be the last one that we are working on. And then because this is the main activity, I've put it into a bigger picture game. So how might we build this up into, again, more pitch specific areas? So it would be down the bottom. I've already added it. So again, I've showed you the video. So again, another 20-minute activity. Again, this is creating that connection and that perception of depth and the understanding between two players. So because it was on a counter-attack, what I've done is allowed the players to come from slightly ahead or to the side of the ball carrier to again get them to understand that they can play the pass as the defender, as your teammate is on the opposition's shoulder. So again, getting that understanding. So I've used goals actually as a safety net for height, and so there's no risk of injury. Now, for a more able group, you can add a player in here, and you can start to build a high line forward as well that can lead and do a second phase job. But I've used the goals to start with, where they carry from 1 to 2, and basically they lead and pass over. And I think I have an animation just to show you how it will work. Here we go. So very simply. And again, similar to the backhand one, there are ways you can build this up. We can add a jump back defender in that is going to chase the ball carrier to add that little bit of pressure. We could add a forward. The goalie would be kitted up by now. Sorry, I should have said that. They would be in full kit. We could add a forward, a defender. We can add, make this a defender in set pieces, so they have to understand 2v1. So I think it's really important because the video clip we showed, I would probably suggest that South Africa were in a good position. They had numbers behind the ball. We didn't have anyone high, yet this skill changes the way the opposition have to defend due to a different threat. So what I was trying to do was find a way to create an environment where we could add this to the players' arsenal more often. And to be honest, I've never delivered a session like this before. So I'd definitely be interested to hear everyone's thoughts, because I rattled my brain on how we might do this. So back to the session design itself. So it's quite simple. You've seen the organization of how the exercise actually runs. We've spoken about how we might add a jump back defender in to apply more pressure to the ball carrier. We've also talked about having a high forward and defender in the circle to create that 3v2 situation, or 3v3 again into the small-sided games. And again, we would do both sides. So actually, how does the technique differ on both sides of the pitch? Is there a difference? Variations could be a lighter ball, tennis balls, or light oversized softballs. So not hockey, like those little jelly balls, just to get the concept of that right leg coming through with the right hand. But the key points for this one are the ball position needs to be in line with that right foot, as we said. We're going to pass off the right foot. It's going to be open stick, and we're going to accelerate the right hand through for height. The left hand's not as important here because we're not looking for the distance, but we're probably throwing more into a running line than into a set position or to a set figure. And again, you can talk about the differences there if there is a difference, but probably most of the time we're chucking into a running line. So again, similar to what the warm-up replicates. And again, this probably wouldn't be that intense. We're at 4, it would be higher if we were at 3v3. And essentially, those are 3 workshops for you to either rotate rounds for 90 minutes, so 20 each, including the technical. If you went 3v3 on both, they would be roughly 30 minutes each. You'd probably spend 10 minutes on one and then 20 minutes on the others. But those are 3 situations where we would use the aerial on the move. The backhand one is probably the least moving, but I wanted to add a different element into the aerial. But the inside pull would be on the move and traveling to create a new passing window. And then the on the move on the counter break from a carry would also be whilst you're traveling. So essentially then we would look at cooling down once we've done the session. Again, this would be quite a low intense session, so the cool down wouldn't need to be super intense. I think it's just a generic cool down here. There we go at the bottom. That would sort of take roughly 5 to 10 minutes, depending on not 100. We'll just put 5 minutes there, and the intensity levels would be fairly low for us. So that would take us to 90 minutes. So I think we're done there, Ernest.
Okay, if you kill your screen share, then we can go to some questions from the coaches here.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to. There we go.
Close all the different screens.
Yeah. It leaves them up in the background. There we go. Sorry, let me just.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, let's bring on a question here from Bert de Boer. So why don't you start with the beginning, from the beginning with receiving as well? Because timing of the play and the connection, receiving is equally important, obviously, and start with small distances. And he also says that he is doing this from ages 10 years old already.
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously the whole point of the session plan, because it's not a workshop or coaches chat on the topic itself, it's a session design. The group that I planned for was my adult first team. So the receiving, obviously we've already done prior. So that's why a lot of them aren't static in isolation techniques, because I planned for my first team. So I totally agree. You would definitely teach them to receive the ball. If they're younger, with closer distances, potentially. I think the difficulty with learning them to do closer is they're more successful, but they don't understand the feel around depth perception that they require. So even if I'm teaching my adults to, I've got females, so we're less likely to throw 75 meters without a little bit of extra work. So I never ever get my girls to stand 30 meters apart, because they will only ever throw to 30 meters because the person is in a depth perception view. So I would rather the ball hit the floor first, and they know that they're short, so they've got like an automatic response. So yes, for smaller ones and younger athletes or beginners, complete beginners at any age, I would definitely teach them to receive as well in the process. Probably with a feed from a hand, to be honest. I would never learn receiving with a feed from a stick of a kid or an adult that was new to it. So it'd probably be a self feed from your partner, from your hand, potentially.
How would you deal with the different skill sets that the people have? Can you hear me, Shenarda? Because
I can hear you. Yeah.
Now, how would you deal with the different skill sets from players who are able to throw overheads already very easily, and then you got those who still struggle with that?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, I think each situation requires a different body shape, a slightly different grip, and definitely a different footwork to throw off. So I think if you're good at an overhead, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at an inside pull, or it doesn't mean that you're able to aerial off your right foot on the move. So I think the exercises themselves are different. So although they're in the bracket of aerialing, they are different skills. So I think that you might find that it will level the playing field a little bit on the ones that can throw. If they can throw, then you're looking at things like how can you make it harder? So the distances at which you're asking them to execute the skill, the amount of pressure you would increase. So it would be more opposed. So probably you'd start immediately with the 3v3. And that's just about smart planning. So you wouldn't pair them with someone that's brand new. If you know your players, then you take care of that in your planning. Who's against who? Who's with what group? Who's paired up with who? Or you can again make it add time pressure executions on. So you can condition them with heavier balls as well. But you have to be mindful if they're passing to someone who then has to receive. If the heavier ball might be suitable for one but not the other. So the heavier ball definitely adds a more physical exertion onto the execution, but definitely add in the pressure aspect. So the execution of maybe how quickly they can get the backhand aerial away out of congestion, those sorts of things could help level the playing field even more.
Yeah, makes sense. Shenarda, while I'm asking the coaches to bring on the next questions, can you turn your camera off and on again, because there's a difference.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. Now there's a time difference between what we're hearing and what we're seeing, at least on my end here. So coaches, any more questions for Shenarda here? If not, now is the time to bring them on. If not, we're going to close this session here. Shen, thanks very much for the time you spent on this again, and sharing the knowledge about these aerials on the move. And like Robert also told earlier in the chat, very good drills. So we enjoyed those. So I'm not seeing any more questions coming through. So thanks very much, Shen, and talk to all of you next Friday again. Okay.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks, Anis.
Bye-bye.